In this video, we look at the top questions that are asked in Australian tourist visit visa interviews. I'm going to help you plan answers that are going to satisfy the requirements. So the first thing you need to be aware of is how immigration officers think. So if you're being interviewed by an immigration officer, how are they going to make the decision on whether to either let you in or approve the visa depending at what stage they're interviewing you? So if they're going to approve, they're looking for you to be complying with the rules. They want to be sure that you're a genuine tourist. They want to be reasonably convinced that you're going to return home in accordance with the visa rules and that you're not going to cost the Australian taxpayer money. They are likely to refuse you if they don't believe that you're credible. So if your answers are not believable or are contradicted by what you said on the application forms, so your inconsistency is a big red flag, and if they are not convinced that you will follow the rules as specified by the visa, for example, if they believe you're coming into work and are not likely to leave the country at the end of visa, that is where they're going to go with the refusal. And so basically the reason that people fail visa interviews comes down to quite a few things. So no preparation, so people might say things like, I just want to see your country, but can't actually explain what they want to see, where they're going and why in any detail. So it looks like you've not really thought about it. So if you're spending a lot of money coming to Australia as a tourist, you're going to know why you're coming and some ideas about what you're wanting to see. Any dishonesty is going to against you. So if your application and your interview don't match exactly, that is likely it would lead to a refusal. So make sure you've read over your application form very carefully and you know exactly what you put on your application. Not providing enough evidence, so if you say things like I don't have a bank account and you can't back up any of your income, you're not likely to be approved. If you've got very basic knowledge missing, so if they ask where your sponsor lives and you can't give an address, well, that's really not likely to lead to an approval because that is fundamental information that you should definitely know. If they are not convinced that you'll return, so you say things like I'll support myself by working for my brother. Well, if you're coming across with a job lined up in advance that suggests you've got a settlement intention and you're not a genuine tourist. So make sure that you cover all these points and don't fall down on any of these. Otherwise you're going to cause yourself problems. So let's move on and look at some questions. One of the questions was, will you work during your visit? Simple answer, no. Visit visas for tourism purposes don't allow you to work. So if you're coming as a tourist, you cannot work. So you have to say no to that, or if the answer is yes, you should be applying for a different category of visa. How will you support yourself during your visit to Australia? They want to be convinced that you're not going to be a burden to the taxpayer and that you can actually afford. So what you have to do is show that your costs are less than the assets that you're bringing. So your flights plus all the costs of living in Australia during the duration of your visit should be covered by your savings perhaps, or if you're only coming for a short time, you're going to have employment income coming in, you're going to have leave from work organized, and if you're staying with someone, that will reduce the requirement significantly. So if you're getting free accommodation, you don't need to show that you can afford a hotel for that duration, because you've got that lined up. So if you show that your assets and income exceeds your costs, then you'll fly through this question. Where do you plan to live during your visit? 3 things you have to demonstrate. First, you have to show that the accommodation is available or reasonably available. So if you're staying with family, you need some proof that they've actually invited you. Or if you're staying in a hotel, you have to have some idea where. It doesn't have to be fully booked. It can be prospective. But it has to be plausible, it has to be affordable. So if you're looking at your savings and the cost of the hotel exceeds your savings, well, that's a big red flag. So you have to prove that you can afford it and that it's appropriate, so you know you're not bringing 6 children and your wife or your husband and living in a 2-bedroom house with another family member, so that would be ridiculous. So if you satisfy them of these 3 things, you're going to be successful on this question. Let's move on to another key question. How long will you be visiting Australia for? Very simple to ask, answer make sure you're aware of on the application form. So whatever you said on the application form is what you need to say in the interview, otherwise you're going to create problems, and you want to explain why. So if you're coming for 1 week or 1 month, that's going to have a very different explanation. Structuring your holiday very differently. And if you hit those 2 aspects, you're going to have a good answer and they're likely to move on as a way. Last question, have you ever been refused a visa? This is a classic question asked all over the world in visa interviews, and they already know the answer. So you must tell the truth. They know if you've been refused a visa before because they have access to all the records, and the chances of the immigration officer has already checked and is then asking you this question, because people who are trying to conceal things and trick their way into a visa will say no when the answer is actually yes. If the answer is yes, you want to give an explanation as to why that explanation has to be truthful. The best one is that you didn't prepare properly, you didn't submit all the required documents. You didn't have enough evidence. That's all fine. If you had a refusal for dishonesty, you can only be applying after that period has expired. Otherwise you'll just get another refusal. So hopefully this video's been very helpful to you and you're well prepared for your Australian visa interview. Thank you very much for watching.